Alright friends, so let's continue and we will start with the custom search. But before that, there are a few things that I want to fix. And these are, like, as you can see, the job cards over here which are being displayed. Let's add a bit of margin to the bottom so that we have some sort of like a white space. And for that, let's go to the app file, and within, like, we have the grid container which has the search bar as well as the different job cards. So let's wrap this grid container in a box over here, and let's add a margin to the bottom to it of about 3. I think that would be enough for this. And let's have a look, and we have the search bar, and yep, we do have some white space. And the other thing is, like, if we check the, like, when we are posting the job, and if you remember, like, when we post it, we are fetching the jobs again. But the thing is, the circular progress bar, like when we first visit the application, we can see the circular progress bar. But in this case, we are not actually showing the search, the loading bar, like the circular bar. And for that, what we can do is, over here, set loading, we can set it to be true. And mainly the reason to this is because we had the value of true as a default one, so it was working fine when we were, like, fetching for the first time. But as we were making the request the second time, like when we are actually posting a job, so then again we need to kind of set the loading to be true so that it has the effect of, like, fetching the new data basically. So that being aside, and there are a few things in the, like, when we are submitting the form, and that are, we need to check that these, like, there is something in this field, like the job details, we have something filled in, because these are the required fields, if you remember. And for that, what we can do is, inside, like, while we are submitting the form, let's check the values, and we can loop over all the properties within the job detail object and see if there are, like, if there is a blank value, so we can avoid submitting the form. And we can do that by const field in job details. So this will be the individual field, and, like, for now, let's just console.log these, like, the individual field that we are looping on, and we can kind of comment this out for now, so that we just get, like, we are able to see the individual field when the user submit. So over here, if I open the console and open the Moodle as well, and if I try to submit, you can see that we are getting all the fields. And what we need to do is, we need to check the actual data, like the actual value of this field, and we can do that by using the job details, and in such a manner so that it basically checks the field within the job details object, that is the state. So we have a look at it right now and submit the form again. We can see that there are a few blank values, as you can see. So we can work with this by checking if there is a blank field, then we can kind of return this function and not proceed with the rest of the stuff. And if you see, like, if you can see that there is an array as well. So what we need to do is, we need to check in that if the field has a data type, like if it is a data type of string, then only we need to check. And for the skills one, we can check in, like, separately. And what we can do, we can have it in such a manner that if the job details, like, firstly we will check if the type of the value of this field is string. So that means, like, it's an input field or like a select one. But for the case of select, there's always going to be like a value, so it doesn't really matter. But the thing is, like, if it is a string, then we need to check that there has to be some value, and we can do that by doing in such a manner that if there is a, like, if it is a string, and if there is not a value, then we can console it in such a manner. Like, for now we are consoling it, but later on we can see that, or like, we can see that it is not validated. And but if it is, and what we can do is, we can return this console so that we do not actually proceed with the rest of the stuff. And if it is not, we can, like, if everything is filled in, so we can say, wow, console.log validated. So if it is a string value, and if there is nothing in there, then we are kind of returning the function right away. We are not proceeding. But if, like, if this gets passed on, like, if it is passed, this condition is passed on, then it is validated. So let's have a look, and if it's submitted right now, it says not validated, and it is returning the function. That's why we are not getting over here. But if we kind of fill in the rest of the details, like over here, and now if I submit it, it says validated. So that's great. Now apart from the input fields, we also need the user to select some skills as well, and we can add that star to the skills over here as well, and we can do that by going at skills and over here basically add in a star. And what we need to do is, like when we are submitting the form over here, we can check whether like a different else, like a if statement, and we can check that if job details skills and the length of it, and we can add in the not, like if there is nothing in the array and the value of it is 0, then we can return the function again, and we can remove this console over here and just return the function over here. So let's have a look right now. Let's check the condition, and if we try to submit, nothing's actually happening. We are not getting to the validated one. But if we fill in the details and then again if we try to submit it, as you can see, we are still not able to kind of get to the validated one, because we need to have, like we need to choose at least one skill. So now if I post it, like now if I click on the post button, it's saying validated. So this is the, like at this point we need to kind of send the the details to the server. So let's uncomment this out, and we are validating that we have like the required fields are filled in. So that's perfect. Now let's get to the the custom search, so that we can kind of make the custom search accordingly. Like we can fetch the jobs accordingly, and for that let's go to the search bar, and we need to create a state which holds in the value for these two fields, like these two select inputs, and we can do that by adding in the state of and using the useState, and it will be an object firstly, and the two fields that we are like using as a measure of like filtering out is the job type as well as the job location. So let's do that, and we can name it the same, and let's name it as job type, and the other one is the location. And what we can do is the same thing that we did in the the new modal form, like new job form, that is hard coding the value for these two, so that we can remove the default value from here, and let's just remove it from here. Okay, perfect. And now we need to bind this select bar, like both these select bar, to these value, and we can do that by going value. Okay, we need to we forgot to name it, and we can name it as job details, or like job search, and set job search, and the value that it has to be bind is the type one, so we can name it as job search, and this one is the type one, and we will add in the handler, but for now let's just, okay, we also need to add in the name, so we can name it as type, and the same thing for this one of job search location, and the name of it would be location. So let's create the same handle change as what we created over here in the new job one, and we can actually copy it because it's the same thing. We just need to change the set job details to set job search. So it will be updating this like the relative value, and we need to import it as well over here. Perfect. And now we need to call this function whenever there's something changed on the select component, and we can do that by select change and handle this. All right, and for now let's just console the value to see whether or not the values are being changed. And one more thing, I had a console in this one, so let me just remove it. So let it compile. Okay, I think I did not, okay, it's not auto importing it, so let me just import it manually, and let's have a look. Let me open the console as well, console, and if I make some, if I change the value, all right, so it is working perfectly fine. Now what we need to do is we need to create a function in our app that the search bar can call and pass in these two value, and accordingly we will fetch the custom the jobs. So let's create a function below the fetch jobs, and it would be fetch jobs custom, and we will receive the job search info, basically the object that has the two values, and we will be doing kind of the same thing as we did in the fetch jobs, but the query would be a bit different, and that is below the order by we can chain in the where. Where is basically a query, or you can say the query that allows us to make or fetch custom documents, or not the custom documents. It basically allows us to kind of filter out our queries accordingly, like as per what condition that you provide over here, and we need to provide the kind of the same. We need to like fetch the custom job documents which fulfill the conditions that we add in over here, like the type and the location. And if we check the document, we can see that the type and the location are the fields, so we can search accordingly. And that is by the first one is the field that you want to pick up, like the one that you want to query accordingly, and that would be the location, and it has to be equals to whatever the user selected. And we have type, like if you remember, we have the type one, so let's add type, and below it let's add another where query, so you can kind of filter out your you can narrow down your query basically. And the other one is the type, not the type, okay, I made a mistake, it should be location, and the next one would be the type. So we have to call this function inside the search bar and pass in the job search object which has the type and the location. So let's pass this in the search bar, fetch jobs custom, and over here one second, I think I made a mistake. Okay, one second, in the custom one, okay, it has to be async so that we can use the await. And inside of here we need to save the state of, like we need to save the state of loading, so that we can show that circular progress bar like we are making the search, and that could be the default value of false. And if we go back to new job model, we can kind of copy the same stuff that we had over here because it's doing the same thing. And within the search, like within the button, let's paste it and change the text of post job to search. Very well, search, and let's use the same value to make the button disabled as well, that is disabled of loading. So that's good. And now let's call let's call that function that we are passing in as a prop. If you remember the fetch jobs custom, or you can say fetch custom jobs, that's up to you, the naming part. And let's just use this prop, and we need to create a function in this as well so that we can kind of handle the loading in this component. And we can do search, and we can change the value of set loading to be true, and this would be an async one because the value would change only when the request is successful. And await props dot fetch jobs, and now we need to pass in the job search, like the object that has these two values, and let's pass it in. And just below it let's change it back to false. All right, and we need to call this function when the user clicks on the search one. Okay, I think we are missing out the circular progress bar, and we can import it from the material UI library. And let's have a look. Let me open the console as well. And now we have these like few jobs over here, and all of them are kind of same, but the second one has the type of full-time, but the location is in office. So let's make the search accordingly, like it is full-time and in office, and let's make it. And now it's obvious, like you will be seeing an error in your console, and the reason to this is because the query that we are making over here, this is custom query. And the thing is, like the Firestore has two types of queries. Like when we are actually fetching the jobs, the normal jobs, we did not actually see any error over here. And the reason to that, because if you have a simple query, there are two types of query. So the simple queries are the one which you basically search or get the like all documents, or you can add in a single condition, such as a single where you check a field. But when you kind of chain in different fields and you have a query like this which has multiple where, so you need to create a custom index. And the reason to that is because the Firestore needs to know that a query like this is possible. So it has to cater accordingly. So it has to be prepared that the user can make such type of queries. That's why it's giving an error that the Firebase, the query requires an index. and you have to make the index by clicking on this link. It will redirect you to the Firebase console, and it will have everything set up, because as you can see that it is creating an index. It is creating a composite index which has the query would be of like this, like the location would be ascending, like all the different fields that we have. And now it will make the index for all the different documents that are inside that jobs, so that they can be queried accordingly, like in this manner. So now it will take a few minutes. So let me just fast forward. Alright, so it has been created. It took way too much time. Anyway, so if we get back to our application, and if I refresh, and I will have to make that custom search again, and let me just search for full-time, like the job type of full-time and the in-office. So it should basically give us this job card. And if I make the request, it is loading. The loading is working fine, as well as we are able to make the request. So that is amazing. We are able to make the custom search. And now we also need to give the user an option to get back to the default search. And for that, what we can do is, inside the app, let's create another state, and it should be custom search. And this will basically you can say will be holding the state whether or not that the custom search is being made, or the custom search has been made. And we can show that the button of which makes the default search, and you will get what I actually intend to do. And basically we will be using this state to display the button which defaults back to the normal search. And initially it would be false, but when the user actually makes a custom search, we can set the value to be true. And if the value is true of this custom search, we can go below over here where we are actually displaying the job cards. We can create a fragment, because I need to add another component of box, and that box component will be holding the different, not in such a manner. One second, it would be box, and within the fragment let's create, okay, I think it's confusing it with this one. And alright, so now it is fine. Within the fragment we have the same thing like the map, and within this box let's create the button which basically shows the user to kind of that this is a custom search, and you can go back to the normal one. And we can have a button, and within that button we can add an icon of cross, just like what we added in the job modal. And for that, let's go up here and import it. Import from material UI icons, make sure it is icons, and let's import the close one as close icon. And now over here let's use that icon and set the size of 20, so that's not too big. And also let's add in the text of custom search, so that kind of depicts that it is a custom search, and you can change it. Now if we have a look at it right now, and the thing is we need to display this thing conditionally, because we do not really want to show this always, and that would be custom search. And if it is true, only then we are displaying this. And I think I made, okay, yeah, the reason to that is because it is basically a JavaScript expression, so we have to wrap it accordingly. And firstly let's close this, and also the one that wraps it, so we can remove this from here. Alright, so yeah, it has been formatted. Let me just go back, let me just go through what we have over here. We if it is loading, we're displaying this. If it is not, then we are checking, it is basically a fragment, and we are checking that if we have made, if this is a custom search that the user has made, and if it is, we are displaying this button which we will look, and we are also displaying the normal map, as you can see, the job cards basically. And we need to import the button component as well. And let's just save it and have a look to what we have. Now if I make the custom search, so that's going to make the custom search, and it's going to change the value of the set custom search to be true, which will result in getting that button, as you can see. So yeah, it is actually looking nice. Let's just format and align it to be on the right side. And for that, what we can do, the box component which has the button as well. And also if we take a look at it, yeah, it is actually looking nice. So what we can do is the box component, let's just give it a display of flex and justify content to be of flex end. And let's have a look. And also let's add a margin to the top and the bottom by my, like in the y-axis, of about 2. And let's have a look how it looks now. And if I make the custom search of in office, yep, it actually looks nice. And now it just has to call that fetch jobs function, and we will basically get back to the normal search by fetch jobs. But within this fetch jobs, let's also change the custom search value to be of false. Now it does not really matter if it was like true or not, but it will basically change it back to false if it is, because that's the default as well. So let's have a look at everything, how it is looking. And if the user makes the custom search and makes it over here, so we get the button, and if the user clicks on it, yep, everything's working perfectly fine, no error as well. So that is great. Now we have the custom search as well. So we are only left with the viewing part, like when the user clicks on the check button and we see that modal. So let's complete